so I am from Key Bank. We are I wouldn't call us a super regional. We're a nationally based bank. We're based out of Cleveland, Ohio. We've actually been in the green renewable energy business since 2009. So one of the things that isn't in my slide, left and right, just our commitment to sustainability. One of the things that's really important to me, this slide's about 2 years old now. We actually have 50% of our corporate footprint is fully LEED certified. We not only provide the financing, but we live by what we say. So if you go, we have the largest building between New York City and Chicago. If you go all up and down the East Coast, it's the Key Tower. It is a fully certified green building. We've retrofitted, so we've gone through some of the projects that you folks have gone through as well. And, we estimate that, all these changes are going to happen. I don't print anything at work unless I have to. I get it all done by a smartphone. I send it via text. I take electronic financials because if I have to come to you folks, and I'll give you a little bit about my background that's on my bio. I'm actually the child of a fourth generation appointed or elected official in New York. So I've lived with the municipal stuff my entire life. My father still is an elected official in a nearby county. So for the last 5 years, I've lent money to governments. So I price the debt, I price the deposits, I know the cost, be that good or bad, and then I know the kind of dollars you're working with. So similar to what Mike said, we do ITC, so we'll do the tax credits, we'll hold it on our balance sheet. We are not just vetting, we funded a bunch of community solar projects throughout our entire corporate footprint. To Chris's point, we want to be more important in New York. Year to date through the end of February, we have financed or funded 6,800 megawatts in renewable energy projects. The majority of those being in the East because of the benefits to New York, the Midwest in the states of Ohio, Illinois, Indiana, and Michigan, and on the West, Colorado, actually California. We're looking at projects in New Mexico, Washington, Alaska, Oregon, and all that area. So some of the states that don't have models similar to ours. We'll do commercial property. These are how we approach it. Unlike Mike, we are a corporation that goes from Maine to Alaska in just about every state. We actually have an equipment finance group that we can fund your project upwards of 120% if it's included in the project. So the hard costs, soft costs, if, as Mike did say so eloquently, if they're in part of the package. And then we have a conversation. I have peer groups. I kind of head up some of our New York initiatives with some other folks. We want to kick the tires. We want to see the project. We want to live it, eat it, touch it, breathe it. I'm a guy, when I worked in the municipal world, drove 5,000 miles a month. You're shaking your head, but it's fun. It's interesting to see the North Country, the true North Country, in the middle of a blizzard, and you're driving when the air conditioning doesn't work in the car. We look at renewables. Some of our resources, multiple asset projects. So we can do. I was asked earlier today by a gentleman who's known me for a few years. We'll do multiple types of projects. So we will do solar. We will do geothermal, we will do retrofit projects, and we will look at each one individually or as an all-encompassing umbrella. And let's see, I want to get to a slide here. So, typical equipment loan, 7 years, a capital lease, 10 years, an operating lease, 10 years, and real estate will go up to 25 years if necessary. Either community or individually held by a PPA or an SP, a special purpose entity that may have been formed by that group. Those are some things we can have offline. I am the guy who works the debt, and I will say this for the municipal side, if a government entity is the holding company, as it were, that is the least expensive money available by a bank. It's very, very competitive. And typically, we're not looking at structured fees, and I've heard the low to moderate income. The banks are committed not just to lending in those areas, they are very attractive because those are the tendency for the individuals who pay the most and the best. So our concern isn't always with who's doing the payment as much as how it's structured and what the borrowing is. This is an example of a project we did, rooftop solar. I've heard a lot of that. I also look at literally solar farms. They truly are farmland that have become solar properties. It's a $1.2 million project, rooftop. First time we assessed it, this is the energy savings, $124,000. This is the income. The net annual savings, $159,000 a year. So when I look at this project off the top of I'm not real good with numbers unless I pre-calculated, that would probably pay itself back in 7 to 10 years. You could pay it back, I think you said 5, you probably could do it pretty quick like that. This is at the 30% tax credit rate, which yes, I know is going to drop to 10% at the end of the year. Reduced capital costs, we can take that up front off the project. By the end of December.
Yes.
No, it's extended, it's been extended.
Yeah.
8 years.
So this will give you an example here. Yeah, it's been extended 8 years, and the governor wants 50% of the carbon footprint reduced. And for another thing that's going on with my corporation, we have to make it happy. These slides are split up for 2 reasons. This whole project here also included a geothermal and LEED certified project. So the net cost on the end was about $259,000 in year 11. And that's the ongoing net revenue to the project when it's all done. I told you I'd be quick.
Right? Good job.
So, what questions can we answer? And yes, we do buy some of the public debt that, when I read Michael's bio, we actually do public placement of large capital debt. So we, like he said, like US Bank, JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, HSBC out of the city, and all the, the Banco Populars. Upstate, we don't have the luxury of a lot of large banks in every corner that are willing to do every project. That's good for me, but competition is also happening.
So you alluded to the fact that you fund $1 million project, and a lot of banks are really interested in these $5 million and up. How does that appetite go forward in different markets, whether it's solar, wind, or anything you want to describe?
Every project we've ever done or vetted is looked at on its own merits. We've done a $128,000 project. We have specific projects in our renewable area that will do fleets of renewable energy green cars. We'll do a boiler system for mom and dad's house. There's a project in the community out here where my father lives that is for the benefit of an elected official, but it's being sold back to 2 large entities to retain that employment. They're 2 very large employers. The project's $1 million. So we've done very small. I'm very small. With turbines and houses.
I have a related question for Michael, I guess, which is, I guess I was also of the impression that Green Bank was only interested in projects of a certain size. So one of the things I've been thinking about is, we'd like to do something like 10 megawatts of community solar, which might be 5 2-megawatt projects. So if those are $5 million a piece, roughly, talking about $25 million total. You were describing a process whereby a developer could sort of place project by project into a warehouse facility. I guess I was under the impression we need to aggregate a certain number of projects to reach a level of investment. That's not
that's in fact, for us, for us, risk is risk, and it's all fundable, right? So for us, you can imagine in your mind, the lowest risk scenario is you build a project, prove to us that you know what you're doing, drop it in.
Can't hear.
Sorry. I was just saying that, for us, risk is pretty much fungible. And if you just think about it, the lowest risk scenario is you go out and you develop one project, you drop it in the basket, we loan against half of that. You take that money, you go develop another, you demonstrate you know how to do that. You go take half of that money, go develop another project, drop that in the basket. So if you, just conceptually, if you think about it, that's actually a much lower risk scenario than going out and trying to build 10 of those and drop all 10 of them, right? So for us, that sort of borrowing-based facility that's based on a fleet of projects, that's like mother's milk for us, right? That's perfect. That's good.
So can you give us a sense of how that might work? Say I'm a regionally based installer. I do $5 or $10 million in sales every year, mostly smaller projects, but I want to build these bigger projects. Would I approach someone like Jeff to get financing for those projects as they're ready to come online, and then work with the Green Bank to provide some backstop or some sort of credit enhancement for that?
Ideally, you would come to us with, sort of a project plan laid out, right? That says over the next several years, this is what I'm going to do. We've identified counterparties, we've identified installers, we've identified, the entire value chain to accomplish this, right? You would come to the Green Bank, say, tell us what you're looking for. Are you looking for tax equity back leverage, or are you looking for a credit enhancement? I've already spoken to KeyBank. KeyBank says they love it, but they need credit. Come to us with what do you need from us. That's the perfect scenario. If you came to us with, I've already identified KeyBank as my tax equity, and I just need Green Bank to come in to lever the tax equity, it doesn't get any better than that. If you come to us and say, can you help us find tax equity, that's a little bit more difficult, but I'll certainly give you a Rolodex of people you can call and talk to. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, Mike, I believe at the beginning of your presentation, you said that when you guys did the analysis of community solar, you found that low moderate income was actually lower risk than a much lower option.
Yes.
Can you tell us how you reached that conclusion, and then
Sure.
you feel the same way?
Yeah, absolutely. So, how do I start this? We were getting, as a matter of policy and just simply a matter of interest, market interest. There was a lot of people that were really interested in this space. And you might, let me digress for just 10 seconds. If you read my bio, I've spent most of my career in the last 25 years outside the United States rather than inside the United States, doing project finance in some rather exotic zip codes. And places where being secured by the assets is meaningless because they may not be there tomorrow morning. And there's no place in the country that you can go for recourse because the judicial system doesn't work, right? So I was forced over my career to be able to figure out, if you didn't figure out how to do business like that, you just didn't do any deals, right? So you had to really understand risk, you really had to get your head wrapped around it, and you also really needed to be able to price it and underwrite it correctly. And that was one of the skills that I brought to the Green Bank. So when I got there, there was this tidal wave of demand for LMI and low FICO scores. So basically, we said, look, the market's asking for it. This is part of the role that we have, part of our mandate charter. So we went out and basically did a study of 750,000 homeowners in New York State and their payment histories between 1999 and 2014 on their home mortgage and the underwriting process associated with that. And based on that study, we came up with a credit model that's FICO-based, MSA, Metropolitan Statistical Area-based, debt to income, debt to assets, and LMI is part of the analysis, right? And so we now, New York Green Bank has a model that's based, a default probability curve that's based on this data set that we have, where, for example, one of the projects that we put up here is, it's actually not a community solar project, it's a home energy efficiency portfolio that's based in Suffolk and Nassau County. And we were actually able to underwrite that with very, very specific data, very, very specific default probabilities based on the zip codes of the houses. They came to us and they said, look, our historical data is based on a FICO score of X. We'd like to expand the universe of potential people by changing the FICO scores. We'd like to be able to trade off debt to income and debt to asset ratios and things like that. And we're in a position to be able to say, good, here's the operating envelope that we would consider good for your underwriting, and as long as you stay in this. And by the way, when we do our annual audit and due diligence on you, we're going to validate that in fact you're living within this envelope that we're speccing out. But we gave them a curve that said as long as you stay within this operating envelope for all these parameters, you're good to go. And we were able to very succinctly get our head wrapped around that risk and that profile and be able to underwrite it and price it. This is another one that, again, the whole idea of the Green Bank being very innovative and creative. So had we completely priced that debt instrument on its own merits, on its own basis, the pricing based on the inherent risk attributes probably would have made that deal unattractive. So what we were able to do to basically, because of our fiduciary role, and make sure that we were getting fairly compensated for the risk that we were taking, this was one where we sliced the capital structure, where we're giving them debt that at a level and at a rate that makes their business model work, but then we took an equity slice, a very small equity slice, so that in the aggregate and in the total, we're getting fairly compensated for the risk that we're taking. But it still enables them to actually run the business the way they can. And so that's kind of some of the things that we're doing. And I'm just one guy of 10 in the group, that there are other very innovative and creative things that we're doing.
Jeff, how do you look at low moderate income?
Well, so, I mean, we fall under some similar rulings because we are a publicly traded company. There's this little term in banking called redlining. So we can't ignore any community in which we do business. And in upstate New York, prior to and after the acquisition merger we were having, we will do business in more low to moderate income areas. So we underwrite based on need and ability to pay. And similar to what Michael said, we have data and strata. Banks we're really good at this, is finding out who pays, how they pay. And there's a story behind everything when there is a hiccup. So I can't, and I've lived at all levels of my bank, including the merger acquisition side, the government side. And according to my picture, I used to have hair here, not here. I'm not sure if it's that or having a father who's a politician. So I will say that we look at all of those things, and we look at the community's ability to pay. Because I've sat in all of these that I could, and I've heard the same story over and over again. All the developers have said, just because we're in the grid and we're paying on that, when we leave, here comes the next group of people willing to pay. Because it's there and we'll have the ability to pay for it. So you kind of have to be a little unique. We look at the scope of the project, ability to pay, who's involved with it, and just because one apple may not have a perfect shine doesn't mean it's not going to work. And everybody has a situation. Today's low to moderate income, I believe, was middle class 50 years ago.
So how do you start the process with the key bank? You walk into a branch, or is there an easy yes, no?
You pick.
I want the second one.
You want the second one? Hi, Andy, it's Jeff at the key bank, and I get a click. You can either call myself or within your market, I'll tell everybody how to get a hold of me. It's Jeffrey_J_Eades@keybank.com. Drop me an email, and I will respond. You can tell me where you are, where your project is. I will make sure that if I'm not personally handling it, it's vetted through a person. But not only I have faith will handle your project and see it through the end, but if they don't, my response email has my cell phone. Trust me. It doesn't go off. I have a 16-year-old daughter. It doesn't go off.
And similarly, I handle all the incoming transactions that come to the Green Bank. So, suggestions, go to the website, go to the portal, because that's how you get a proposal into the system. But then it comes to the other end of that, and you'll hear back from it.
And we want to make sure that that's followed through, because similar to Michael, these things are tracked. We have what we call an enterprise manager who oversees it nationally. Some folks in the room can tell you have had some sidebar conversations with me. I am trying to motivate him to come here beyond a day. He's an expert at what he does. Yes, sir.
Just a quick question. So I'm interested in kind of how you all perceive difference, or as a potential municipal sponsor / host of one of these projects. Sorry, as a potential municipal sponsor of a project, I'm wondering how you guys think about skin in the game, quote unquote, and our revenue stream that we might be able to bring to help support the part of the project finance. So we in Erie County sell tax liens through the municipal bond bank that the state has. And I'm wondering if that would be, those kinds of revenues, they're pretty stable, at least for us, and we do this cyclically. Every few years we sell municipal tax liens and that sort of thing. Would those be acceptable sort of revenues to help sort of, we cleaved off some of that revenue and brought it to the projects? Would that be acceptable to do as part of our skin in the game, and we help bridge some of the finance gaps and then bring it to the bank once we had aggregated some portion of those tax liens with maybe perhaps key banks financing and others to help create a project that would be acceptable. I guess I'm trying to figure out what's good for you in the various universes of project finance. So the first thing that comes to me is what we always got in our pocket when we got tax liens. So that's all I'm interested in.
Well, so I looked at this week, 5 EPC contracts in New York State. The taxpayers were not burdened by it. The energy performance contract, and there was some solar utilities in some of them, to your question, and they went from western to eastern, southern to northern New York, and they were based on a couple of things. New York State, and I preach this because I live here, I'm proud to say I live here. I had an opportunity to live everywhere in the country, love Central New York. Now, many people think I'm crazy, but I'm also down and scared. So I guess I am crazy. Most of the municipalities in New York State have an A rating or better. And the county I'm speaking to, I believe, is a little better than that. And you've done a very good job with it. So we follow Moody's rating to see what that risk modeling is. Municipalities hold a totally different role in our bank. Very heavily viewed in a very positive sense. I mean that professionally and sincerely. So we look at the term of the project and what you need out of it. So if you're here to put skin in the game, from that argument, so to speak, that's the rarity. Usually it's, a project's $5 million, it's $1 million, it's $250,000. How long and how much will you finance? And we look at that. If you're looking to place the bonds that are being invested, I believe you may already know this from the size of your county, we purchase those investable grade as well. Because there are investors in New York and in the rest of our corporate investment footprint, which is the entire United States, that want to buy those.
But generally, we go through the MBBA in order to sell those.
You go through Disney or Fannie or Freddie.
Yeah, right. Some state agency in order to put those bonds out on the street. So we can talk a little more offline about how that might work in terms of packaging a project. But I'm wondering if that's acceptable to you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a project on the books right now that we're looking at. It's a series of a very large number of school districts in New York. They're looking to bring together a community solar model, and it's right in our sweet spot. It's really wonderful, and the pricing on that is extremely attractive, simply because it's extremely good credits.
This will be our last question.
Okay, Michael, you just mentioned the school district. Is that being done in collaboration with K Solar and NIPA?
Really, it's inappropriate for me to speak to any details, but you would know the names.
Okay.
He's going to protect himself.
Well, I want to thank both of our panelists. Thank all of you for this great session.